Thanks for checking out our video series, Community Connections. The COVID-19 public health emergency has posed challenges for communities across the globe, not the least of which is staying connected with the citizens that make our communities great. These are the people that you see in the grocery store, the coffee shop, or walking their dog along the Duke. The intention of this video series is to bridge that gap and bring us together despite our physical separation. I hope you enjoy the segment.
Hi everyone. Today I'm here with Betsy Fowler. She's the director of the Williamsburg Regional Library. And how are you doing today, Betsy?
I'm well, thank you.
How are you holding up?
Very well, actually.
Good.
Everyone in my family is well. I have a nice place to be.
That's
Lots
lovely.
of much good food, so that's all working out well.
So we have a series of questions we're going to ask you today as part of the Community Connections video series. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Can you tell us how COVID-19 has affected you personally or professionally?
Well, I think the library comes to mind foremost because shutting the library doors on March 13th, we have really had to reimagine all of the library services. So every way we did business, we've had to rethink, and we've had to think of how can we be innovative? How can we invent new services that are relevant to people right now? So it's taken a lot of brainstorming. Fortunately, the staff is great at being creative and innovative. It's taken a lot of work. It's been exciting and stressful. So I think that's the biggest way it's impacted me. Otherwise, in my personal life, I think it's been interesting that I've had to just kind of slow down. I'm not in my car racing around. I'm not going to meetings. I'm living a more contemplative life. I'm not consuming like I usually do. I'm not shopping. It kind of reminds me of my childhood in the 60s a little bit when life was slower and we ate all our meals at home. And so it's been interesting, and it's made me a little bit thoughtful about how I usually live my life.
I would agree with all of that. How does your daily routine differ now that we're operating during this pandemic?
Well, like a lot of people, I probably sleep to the last minute now rather than getting up earlier. A little less time for vanity exercises of getting dressed and fixing myself up. I think it's harder to stop working in some ways because when you're working from home, it just sort of becomes kind of a continual day, and you don't have the defined hours where you're at work and then you come home and you stop and maybe check emails later that night. It just kind of bleeds into the whole day now. So that's different.
What do you look forward to doing when the restrictions are lifted?
I think seeing my children and my grandchild. We really have been kind of quarantining away. We have 5 children in their early 30s, and they're still out and about quite a bit. So we haven't been socializing with them. So it feels like a long time since I've seen everybody. And as wonderful as telecommunications are, they're not quite the same as being able to be in the same room and embrace people and be there with them.
I understand that. My parents live in Colorado, and so we FaceTime on a regular basis, but it's just not quite the same.
Not quite the same. That's right. There's no skin.
Exactly. What's one thing you wish you had known before the pandemic?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think we could all think, well, we should have sold all of our mutual funds for retirement ahead of time if we had known what was going to happen to the stock market. But I think I probably would have planned for the library differently because the reality has changed and what we are looking at is changing rapidly. So I wish that I had not spent so much time planning for things that aren't going to happen now and been able to be more prescient about where we are. But that's just the same for everyone.
So since you're spending more time at home, what's your favorite stay-at-home snack?
Apparently everything. Consumption. But I think trying to not eat too many sweets, but we eat a lot of eggs. We eat a lot of home-cooked meals. We make a cake and have tea in the afternoons. There's a farm stand up the road that sells homemade crumpets. So that's kind of been a special tea treat. So that's been nice.
That sounds like a lovely way to spend the afternoon.
I know, it does.
So what have you been doing with your time now that you've been at home?
Well, I have to say gardening. I'm a passionate gardener. Every spring I am filled with renewed hope and visions of what I'm going to be able to do. And I have all these garden fantasies. And then by the dog days of summer, of course, it's all abandoned and things are wilting and weedy. But every spring it begins anew. So I'm right in that immersive period of believing all things are possible. And, out there shoveling and moving dirt and mulch and everything happily in the evenings.
Spring certainly showed up early this year, too.
It did. And it's been very strange because it's been a beautiful spring. We've had lots of blooms, and blooms have lasted a long time. And then on the other hand, you're aware that people are suffering. And it's this very strange juxtaposition of beauty and renewal, and at the same time, crises and trouble. So it's a strange one.
So one of the questions that we ask during these interviews is extremely important, and we need to know whether you prefer cornbread or biscuits.
Oh, no, that's the toughest question of all. I have to say, I think biscuits are more a work of art. I associate biscuits with love more because you have to labor over them so intensively. But being as I love all things bread, I'll probably say biscuits still, but cornbread's great.
Can you tell us one thing about Williamsburg community that you're most proud of?
Well, it's easy to say right away that it has such a strong sense of community and that people are so invested in living in Williamsburg. They're invested in helping each other. They're invested in building a better community. And I have really been touched since I came here as the library director, how strongly people feel about helping everyone in the community and bringing everybody along. And they're very committed to that, and they're willing to invest time and resources and money into making that happen. So that's been very moving. And I think it's also interesting because Williamsburg has such a long history. You're just aware that the city has endured through major wars and revolution, and so many things have happened, and yet it continues to go forward. And you have to think, it's a lot about resilience and how Williamsburg continued to have these enduring qualities and yet keep reinventing itself.
So our last question is, what is one thing you want Williamsburg to know?
Well, I would say personally how grateful I am to have this job and how wonderful it has been to be a part of this community, and how I look forward to helping work with everyone to make an even stronger and more resilient community as we move forward.
So this is
thank you.
Part of the interview questions, but do you want to tell us a quick little bit about the 2020 census?
Sure. Well, it is ongoing. They have extended the timeline now through August to respond. It's very easy to respond. If you did not get the letter in the mail that has your number, you just go to 2020census.com and or the .org, 2020 census, and you can log on. You fill it out very rapidly. It asks a few questions. It's over in 5 minutes, but it's a really important thing to do, and it's something you can do to help your community today because it brings home the bread and butter from the federal government for taxes and roads and schools and infrastructure and public libraries and all sorts of things that depend on those federal dollars to be better. And we are at about 58%, I checked yesterday, in terms of people who have filled out the form. And I think we're at 56, and the average in the state is 58. I don't know that they've counted the college students yet because they're doing that as a group count, but we all need to stay on top of it, encourage everyone in the community to fill this out because we've still got a long ways to go to have a complete count. So,
wonderful.
Please participate today if you haven't.
Thank you, Betsy. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you, and I hope to see you in person again soon.
Me too. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Erin.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for Community Connections and for doing your part to help slow the spread. I hope that you will continue to find ways to stay connected and be engaged. We're stronger together.